Today we're going to talk about the power of habit. In the book, Charles Duhigg talks about the importance of developing really good habits. Now, some of them may be really simple, like brushing your teeth twice a day, or combing your hair, or making your bed, but other ones that are a little bit more complex are doing the right thing. And my friend Dave Rosani and I, we joke about this. He's a periodontist, one of the smartest guys I know in periodontics in New Hampshire. And he says, you know why we do the right thing, Mike? He goes, because it's the right thing. And there's a little irony in that. Doing the right thing all the time is a habit. Do you ever feel like not doing the right thing, like eating an extra bowl of ice cream, or maybe taking a sticker, and removing it from the item of clothing and putting another sticker on it that's a little cheaper? I mean, I see people do this all the time. Try to get away from things. Walking out of the store and they forgot to charge you for something. Do you walk back in and tell them that they forgot to charge you? Go, oh, I got away with it. Or maybe you got a check in the restaurant and they didn't put on the extra drinks that you got. So why is it important to do the right thing all the time? Because it sometimes catches up with you. And it may catches up with you in a way that you may not even be aware of. It may happen very deep. It may happen deep psychologically. It may happen in a way where it affects the way the world reacts to you. And I'm a big believer in this, but I believe that what you put out there in the world does come back. So I think doing the right thing is a very selfish thing, because my life is always better when I do the right thing. I was recently in an airport, and I fly out to Toronto at least once a quarter. And it's a difficult airport sometimes to come back in, because I fly Air Canada, and with the weather and everything else, there's oftentimes a lot of cancellations. And my flight was canceled, and I had no ticket back. And I walk up to the counter, and the guy was in a really bad mood that day. And he goes, I go, what do I do? I go, what do I do? He points. I go, where? He goes, 78. I guess that meant gate 78. Well, anyway, I walk down to gate 78, and I get down there, and there's a miserable man in front of gate 78. And this was right at the end of COVID, so I still had the plexiglass there. And the man that was miserable was hunched over like this. He didn't have one mask, he had two masks on. He was doing a double mask. Okay, so he had the double mask, the bad posture, he's angry. He was pointing his old finger was going at the window like this, and he wanted to get on, and the people are looking at him, and they're basically not reacting to him. They're not getting angry, but they're not giving him any time and attention. And I walked up there, and I had the same problem. I needed to get on a plane. I said, I missed my flight. I'm not going to be able to get on. Is there any chance I can get on the next flight out? I'd really appreciate it. And he turns around, he prints a ticket, and he hands it to me in his first class. I get a first class ticket within like 60 seconds of going to that window. Was I being particularly nice? No, but I wasn't being bad. I wasn't putting out any bad karma. And I find that this happens over and over. The opposite also happens. When I walk into Starbucks in a bad mood, I'm going to be standing in line for a long period of time before they pay attention to me. It's just the way the world works. So having these good habits is important. I'm going to tell you a story about a patient of mine called Hans, and I wrote about him in my book. And it was my first year in practice. It was 1985. And I was in a lot of debt. I had debt from school, I had taken out a loan, I had just built a new office, I had opened it, and I had no patience. I started cold in a town of 5 periodontists. And my town's population was 65,000. I was the 5th periodontist in a town of 65,000. Why did I open up there? Because that's where I wanted to be, because it was my hometown, it was near where I went to high school, my parents still lived there. So I opened up, and I wasn't very busy. And it was now June. I had opened up in January, so I'm 6 months into the practice. And Hansen had gone through scaling and root planing, and I did some reevaluation. And I told him he needed periodontal surgery to eliminate the pockets. And Hans said to me, I remember when this was, it was like July. He said, I'll do it if I need to do it, but I'd rather wait till next year when my insurance kicks in, so I can use the insurance. He goes, however, if you tell me I need to do it now, I'll do it now. Now, those of you who are periodontists or know much about periodontal surgery knows that periodontal surgery is not a life-threatening thing. You don't have to do it right away. And oftentimes scaling and root planing and recall will do the same thing. So at that point in time, I call it my Hans moment. I turned to Hans and I said, no, we can wait until January. But I wanted to do it now because I needed the money, because I didn't have any money and I was in a lot of debt. But at that moment, I was thinking like, am I going to do the wrong thing or the right thing? And so I said, let's do it in January and just go on recall until then. Well, about 6 weeks later, Hans, who was 48 years old, died of a massive heart attack. I didn't know he was sick. He didn't know he was sick. He could have had that heart attack when I was operating on him, or I could have done the surgery and he could have died a few weeks later after that, and I would have felt terrible that I pushed him to go through that. And it would have been like a God message to me, where he comes down, whether you're spiritual or not. I'm not really, it's sort of a joke, but it's I do believe they're there. Comes down and says, you know, you did the wrong thing, and this is what we're going to give you. So I find that my life works a lot better when I do the right thing, even though it's not always expedient. And that has become a habit. It's become a habit that was taught to me by my dad, Jay Sonic, when I was a little boy. And he used to say, you know, one man with courage makes a majority. He says, you got to do the right thing, Mike. And sometimes you're the only one doing the right thing. Now, how does that relate to dentistry? How does that relate to our practice? Well, the reality is not all of us always do the right thing. Not all of us always go that extra step. It requires a commitment. And that commitment is so important. I can't overemphasize the importance of doing the right thing all the time. Because let's face it, we're in a business. We get paid for what we do, and our patients have no idea if it's the right thing or the wrong thing. They trust us. And they trust us less than they did 20 years ago, because nobody trusts anybody. Well, there are some people that trust, but there's a lot less trust. There's been erosion of trust in America. There's been erosion of trust in the world. So, let me give you some business advice. Tell the truth, do the right thing, and you'll be swamped with patients who are looking for you to be the gift to them. It has worked over and over and over again in practices that I've seen doing the right thing. Those practices, people just flock to them because they're treated kindly. They're treated with dignity. They're being honest with them. And honesty is always the first step. Have a great day, everybody. And remember, be the gift.